The Middle Ages mark one of the most fascinating and formative periods in European history. The transition from antiquity to the Middle Ages was not a sudden change, but a gradual and complex process that spanned centuries. The end of the Western Roman Empire in 476 is often seen as the symbolic beginning of the Middle Ages. But to better understand this upheaval, we must consider the numerous political, economic, social, and cultural changes that led to this epochal transformation. The Middle Ages itself did not emerge until later. In the 15th and 16th Renaissance scholastics define a period between what they considered the glorious age of antiquity and their own era, which they saw as a rebirth of ancient culture. They often saw the Middle Ages as a dark age marked by barbarism, decay, and stagnation. However, this negative view has become much more nuanced over the centuries, as modern historians have come to see the period in a more differentiated and balanced way. One of the decisive turning points on the road to the Middle Ages was the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Rome, once the dominant power in Europe and large parts of the Mediterranean region, experienced a period of decline in the 4th and 5th centuries. Turning points on the road to the Middle Ages was the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Rome, once the dominant power in Europe and large parts of the Mediterranean region, experienced a gradual decline in the 4th and 5th centuries. The causes of this collapse are diverse and complex, but one key factor was the internal weakness of the empire in the 3rd century, when it entered a phase of crisis that was exacerbated by a series of civil wars, economic problems, and external threats. This so-called crisis of the empire in the 3rd brought the Roman state to the brink of collapse. The emperors of this period fought for power while the administration became increasingly inefficient and corrupt. Added to this were economic problems such as inflation, currency devaluation, and a growing dependence on slave labor, which in the long term undermined the economic foundation of the empire. External threats also played a major role, with the so-called migration period in the 4th and 5th centuries, during which various Germanic tribes invaded the empire or moved through it, put Rome under considerable pressure. In particular, the Visigoths, Vandals, and later the Lombards, Franks, and Saxons destabilized the western provinces of the empire. In 410, the Visigoths sacked Rome, an event that contemporary people saw as a shocking low point. Another decisive event was the invasion of the Huns under Attila. Nomadic horsemen from Central Asia attacked both the Eastern Roman and Western Roman empires in the 440s and 50s, causing great terror. Even though Attila finally died in 453 and his empire fell apart, his presence had clearly exposed the weaknesses of the Roman defense system and prompted many Germanic peoples to advance further into Roman territory. Finally, all of the Western Roman Empire in 476 with the deposition of the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, by the Germanic military leader Odoacer. Odoacer himself did not take the imperial throne, however, but ruled Italy in the name of the Eastern Roman Emperor in Constantinople. This marked the end of the Western Roman Empire, and the empire was finally divided into western and eastern parts. The Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, survived, however, and was to exist for almost 1,000 years. With the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, the political landscape of Europe began to change fundamentally. Germanic tribes, previously considered barbarians, founded new kingdoms on the former territory of the Roman Empire. These kingdoms were to form the basis for the later medieval world. One of the most important Germanic kingdoms was that of the Franks under their leader Clovis, who converted to Christianity in 500. The Franks laid the foundation for the later Frankish Empire, which under the Carolingians in the 8th century to become one of the most powerful empires in Europe. Clovis' baptism symbolized not only the transition of his people from paganism to Christianity, but also a closer connection between the Frankish kings and the church, which grew in importance during the Middle Ages in other parts of Europe as well. Europe. New kingdoms were established in Italy, where the Ostrogoths established themselves under Theodoric the Great. who considered himself legitimate heir to the Roman Empire and attempted to create a symbiosis between Roman administration and Germanic rule. The Visigoths attempted something similar in Spain, the Vandals in North Africa, and Lombards in Italy. Although these were built on the ruins of the Roman Empire, many Roman traditions were preserved. The administration, the law, and the culture of theremins continued to have an impact in many ways, and many Germanic kings adopted Roman titles and symbols to legitimize their role. One of the most important constants in the transition from antiquity to the Middle Ages was the Church. While the political system of the Roman Empire collapsed, the Church remained as an institution and even gained influence, especially the bishops above. All the Bishop of Rome, who later became a pope, increasingly took on secular tasks and acted as mediators between the Roman tradition and the new Germanic rulers. The Christianization Europe was one of the most significant traces of this period. Already under Constantine the Great, Christianity had become the state religion of the Roman Empire in the 4th century, and after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, this religion continued to spread among many Germanic tribes that were initially pagan or Arian. Christian converted over the centuries to Catholic Christianity, missionary-ruled by St. Patrick in Ireland, St. Boniface in Germany, and Augustine of Canterbury in England, played a decisive role in the spread of Christianity. Christianization had a profound impact on the society and culture of the early Middle Ages. The Church was not only the spiritual center of life, but also an important vehicle for education, art, and literature. Monasteries becoming centers of intellectual life and preserved the knowledge of antiquity. Books were copied in them and they played a key role in preserving the Latin language and culture. The beginning of the Middle Ages was accompanied by a profound change in social and economic structures. The urbanized world of Roman antiquity gradually gave way to a more rural, agrarian form of society. The feudal system that emerged in Europe during the early Middle Ages was a response to the challenges of a time when central authority was weak and access to resources was limited. In feudalism, the social structure was based on personal ties and mutual obligations between feudal lords and vassals. The king or prince granted land to his vassals, who in return provided military service and swore allegiance. This system of feudal allegiance formed the basis for medieval society and profoundly shaped the relationships between the different classes, nobility, clergy, and peasants.